I'm Nate Whelan-Jackson from Capital University, and I want to talk about justice. And in part I want to talk about justice because we just hear a lot of conflicting things about what justice demands, about how we ought to live together, about how we ought to distribute our wealth, our resources, our opportunities. And it's not clear that there's very much common understanding, agreement, or even shared language concerning justice. And I think that fact that there is so much different talk about justice speaks to one of the key features of living in a pluralistic society, and something that our account of justice would have to respond to and have to respect. And that is that there are just so many different overarching positions and beliefs about how we ought to live good lives and how those principles ought to organize our activity and our cooperation. And so what I want to offer today is an overview of one account of justice in liberal societies, John Rawls' account of justice as fairness, and a little bit of background argument for it. And I'm hoping that in giving the account and giving the argument, it's an invitation to consider the view and also consider some objections to the view on your own about how well it really responds to the demand for an account of justice in a pluralistic society. To live in a pluralistic society is to live in a world where there are people who substantially disagree with one another, all trying to figure out how to live together. And this just seems to be a key feature of our communities. I don't share an overarching view of the good or how life ought to be with every single member of my community, and yet we're still in this predicament where we need to figure out how to live together. And together we need to make decisions about how we distribute our opportunities and our resources. And John Rawls thinks that this is a fairly a sort of basic feature of citizenship, that citizens demand these what he'll call moral powers, or have these moral powers. And one is the ability to have this overarching sort of revisable conception of the good that orients our decisions. And another is a sense of justice, a sense that we can cooperate with others who might disagree with us, so long as they'll also cooperate. And so how can we come up with a program for justice, or an understanding of what our laws and our distribution should be, given that we might not have, and in fact won't have, agreement on some overarching vision of the good? Well, John Rawls suggests that what we ought to do is we should follow a particular kind of thought experiment. And in this thought experiment, he suggests that the good rules, the just rules, the way our society ought to be organized, is a product of our decision-making in an original position. That is, we imagine this kind of pre-social moment where we haven't endorsed any particular form of life for our community, any particular set of laws or set of principles regarding the distribution of wealth and opportunities. And we think, how would we organize our society? Now, the temptation in this original position, at least for me, because I know myself, is to create laws and rules and systems of organization that might benefit me. So I know some facts about myself, about my relative class and race, gender, ability, disability, religion, sexual orientation, all of these facts about myself that could kind of creep in to the kinds of laws and systems of distribution that I would make. And so Rawls says we have to imagine ourselves in this moment under a veil of ignorance. And this veil of ignorance means that when we enter society, we don't know who we're going to be. We don't know what our race, gender, religion, class, disability status would be. We don't know our background. And so if that's the case, John Rawls supposes, we're going to come up with some principles that guard against a kind of selfishness, right? That ensure justice, or enshrine justice rather, as a kind of fairness. The first of those, if I don't know who I'm going to be and what my background is that I want the same set of rights available, right, and protected for every citizen. And so I don't want any particular subset of the citizens, any particular subset of the community to have more or less rights than anyone else, because I don't know which subset I'm going to occupy once I enter into that society. The second set of principles, right, that are going to come out of this is I want to make sure that opportunity is equally distributed. I want to make sure that opportunities for social, political, economic participation and advancement don't depend on any particular feature of my background, but instead allow for any member of the community to participate. And finally, since I don't know whether I'm going to be amongst the most well-off or the least well-off, what I want to do is I want to have a system of wealth distribution that guards against the least well-off being extraordinarily vulnerable. What I want to do is endorse a system of distribution that makes sure that the least well-off are doing as well as they can, so long as we also have so long as we also have opportunities evenly distributed, and everyone has the same set of rights. And so what I would really endorse is a society where everyone has the same rights, everyone has the same access to opportunities, and the least well-off are as well-off as they can possibly be, while admitting for some differences because of these rights and opportunities. And so what John Rawls supposes, and what he's offering us, is this conception of justice as a kind of fairness. That when we think about what justice demands in a pluralistic society, is something that's compatible with different groups of citizens having their own different conceptions of what the good is and how we ought to live and frame our lives, and also a way of allowing everyone access to opportunity and some minimal distribution of wealth that allows for people to pursue their own version of the good life.